June Miller leaned her shoulder against the cool stone of the kitchen larder and listened to the violins upstairs. The music was loud and expensive. It was a sound bought with money her father did not have, in a house she had spent the last 5 years trying to save from the bank. Above her, in the grand ballroom of their home in Oak Haven, Pennsylvania, her sister was being presented like a prize. Rose was beautiful, draped in silk that cost more than the year's harvest. Everyone upstairs was focused on the guest of honor, the man people called the King of the North. No one had remembered to tell June to come up. She didn't mind the quiet, but she minded the waste. The summer of 1924 had settled over Oak Haven like a heavy wool blanket. The humidity had not broken in 14 days. The fields outside the Miller estate were dry and thirsty, and the garden June had spent all morning weeding was already wilting in the sun. Inside the house, the air felt even thicker. Arthur Miller stood at the bottom of the stairs and shouted at the ceiling. He was looking for candles. He had ordered 50, but he only saw 10. June walked into the hallway with a heavy wooden crate in her arms. She set it down with a dull thud. "There are 40 candles in this box, Dad," she said. "I could not get the full 50. The shopkeeper in town wants the bill from last winter paid before he gives us more credit." Arthur tightened his grip on his cane. His knuckles were white. "Do not talk to me about bills tonight," he said. "Not today." June wiped a smudge of soot from her forehead. "Someone has to talk about them," she said. "Mr. Frost will be here at 7 o'clock. We should have the lights ready before he walks through the door." Arthur looked at her for a second. His eyes stayed on her face for only a moment before they shifted away. They always shifted away. He looked toward the stairs, toward the sound of Rose laughing with her friends. "Go make sure your sister is ready," he said. He walked away without looking back. June did not sigh. She had learned a long time ago that sighing was a waste of breath she needed for work. Rose Miller came down the stairs at 7:20. She wore a dress the color of a peach. Her blonde hair was pinned up in perfect curls. She looked like their mother had looked. She was 22 years old and carried herself with the ease of someone who expected the world to be kind to her. "Do I look, June?" Rose asked. She stopped on the middle step and smoothed her skirt. "You look exactly the way you are supposed to look," June said. It was the truth. Rose was the face of the family. Rose adjusted her white lace gloves. "Dad says Kalen Frost is a widower," she whispered. "He says he is very old, very rich, and very dangerous. They say he hasn't aged a day in 100 years. June picked up a fallen petal from the rug. "He is a man who runs an estate, Rose. That is all we need to know. He has been cheated by 4 different grain merchants in the last year. He will be looking for a partner who is honest, not just someone who can dance." Rose blinked. Her expression was confused. "How do you know about his grain merchants?" June moved to the front door to check the latch. "I read the letters Dad left on the hall table," she said. "Mr. Frost is a man who pays attention to details." Rose was quiet for a minute. Then she looked at her reflection in the mirror. "That sounds like he won't like me very much," she said. "I didn't say that," June replied. "I said he is a complicated man. That is different." Rose looked at June with a strange look. It was somewhere between love and the quiet guilt of a sister who knew she was taking everything. "Well," Rose said finally, "Dad wants you to stay in the back tonight. He doesn't want Mr. Frost to get confused about why he is here." Rose walked into the ballroom. June stood alone in the hall. "Stay in the back," she repeated to herself. She turned to the kitchen to check on the ice. Kalen Frost arrived at 7:33. June knew this because she looked at the clock in the kitchen. It told her he was a man who did not care about making a grand entrance, but he was also not a man who was lazy. He arrived exactly when it suited him. She did not see him enter the house. She was busy in the pantry arguing with the man who delivered the wine. The man was refusing to leave the cases without a cash payment. "I understand you need your money," June said. Her voice was steady. "But it is Friday night. Your boss will not see the ledger until Monday. Leave the wine. I will send a check by messenger on Monday morning." The delivery man shook his head. "I can't do that, Miss Miller. My boss was very clear." June stepped closer. She said, "Because if you take that wine back, your boss loses our business forever, and I will tell every other family in Oak Haven why we had to find a new supplier." The man looked at her. She didn't blink. He left the wine. June let out a breath and carried the first bottle to the serving table. By 9 o'clock, the ballroom was a blur of heat and noise. The music echoed off the high ceilings. June stayed on the edges of the room. She moved through the shadows, fixing things no one noticed. She caught a glass before it fell. She moved a guest away from a private door. She whispered to the cook that the meat needed to come out early because the heat was making the sauce separate. She did not dance. She was wearing her old blue work dress. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. She was not invisible, but people looked through her. They saw a servant, or a shadow. She preferred it that way. She stood by the east window for a second to rest her feet. She had been awake since 4 o'clock that morning. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, a man was standing across the room. He was not looking at the dancers. He was looking at her. He was the most striking man she had ever seen. His hair was as white as a winter cloud. His skin was pale, almost like marble. He was tall and wore a black coat that looked like it cost more than their entire house. This was Kalen Frost, the Vampire King. He stood in the middle of a group of people who were all trying to get his attention. Rose was standing 2 feet away from him, smiling her best smile. But Kale Frost was not looking at Rose. He was watching June. He didn't smile. His face was like a mask of stone. His eyes were dark and focused. June felt a shiver run down her back that had nothing to do with the heat. She looked away first. She turned and walked back into the kitchen corridor. She had work to do. At 9:30, her father found her. He grabbed her arm and pulled her into a corner. "What are you doing out here?" Arthur hissed. "I told you to stay out of sight." June looked at him. "I am making sure the guests have food, Dad." "I don't care about the food," he said. Frost keeps looking toward the corners of the room. "I will not have him distracted from Rose." He let go of her arm and straightened his tie. "Go to the kitchen and stay there. Thomas is fixing the broken wheel on the carriage in the yard. Go help him." June looked at her father. She saw the fear in his eyes. He needed this marriage to happen, or they would lose everything. "The food is going to spoil," she said quietly. He didn't listen. He walked away. June went to the kitchen. She didn't go to the yard. She went to the ledgers she kept under the counter. She had a feeling the night was about to change. The kitchen was quiet except for the ticking of the clock. June sat at the small wooden table and opened the black book. She knew every cent the family owed. She knew the name of every bank and every man waiting for a payment. She heard a soft sound at the door. She thought it was the cook, but when she looked up, she froze. Kalen Frost was standing in the doorway. He was even taller up close. His white hair seemed to catch the light of the single candle on the table. His skin was so pale, it looked translucent. He didn't look like a king. He looked like a man who had walked a very long way alone. "You are June Miller," he said. His voice was deep. It sounded like the wind through old trees. "Yes," she said. She didn't stand up. She didn't bow. She just looked at him. "Is there something you need, Mr. Frost?" He walked into the room. He moved with a grace that wasn't human. He didn't make a sound on the floorboards. "I was told the woman who runs this house would be in the ballroom," he said. June leaned back in her chair. "My sister is in the ballroom," she said. "I am just the one who keeps the roof from falling in." Kalen stopped at the table. He looked at the ledger. "You are the one who argued with the wine merchant," he said. It wasn't a question. June felt her face get warm. "I did what I had to do," she said. "We needed the wine for your visit." Kalen reached out and touched the edge of the book with a long, pale finger. "And you are the one who told the cook to change the menu because of the heat." "You have been watching me," June said. She felt a strange spark of anger. "Why?" Kalen looked at her. His eyes were not cold. They were tired. "I've spent 200 years watching people perform for me," he said. "I have seen every smile and every dance. I wanted to see the person who was actually working." He sat down in the chair across from her. "Tell me about this house, June. Tell me the truth." June looked at him. She saw the white hair and the pale skin. People called him a monster, but he was the first person in years who had asked her for the truth. "This house is a lie," she said. "We owe $3,000 to the bank in Oakhaven. The roof needs to be replaced before winter. My father spent our last $100 on the flowers in the ballroom." She closed the book. "We are pretending to be rich so you will marry my sister and pay our debts." Kalen did not look shocked. He didn't look angry. He just nodded slowly. "I knew about the bank," he said. My assistant checked the records before we arrived. June stared at him. Then why are you here? Kalen leaned forward. The candlelight reflected in his dark eyes. I came to see if the person who was keeping the lie alive was worth meeting, he said. He stood up. I have made my decision. June felt her heart skip a beat. She thought about Rose. She thought about her father. You should go back to the ballroom, she said. My father is waiting for you. Kalen walked to the door. He paused and looked back at her. I am not interested in what your father is waiting for, he said. He disappeared into the hallway. June sat in the dark for a long time. 10 minutes later, the music stopped. The silence was so sudden, it felt like a physical weight. June walked to the kitchen door and looked into the hallway. She saw the guests standing still. Her father was standing by the fireplace with Rose. Kalen Frost was standing in the center of the room. Everyone was looking at him. He held up a hand. I would like to make an announcement, he said. His voice carried to every corner of the house. Arthur Miller smiled. He looked like he was about to cry with relief. He reached for Rose's hand. Kalen did not look at them. I have decided to join my name with the Miller family, Kalen said. But I will not be marrying Rose. The smile on Arthur's face vanished. Rose let out a small, sharp breath. Kalen turned his head. He looked directly through the open kitchen door. He looked straight at June. I will marry the woman who has kept this house standing, he said. I will marry June Miller. The room exploded in whispers. Rose turned white. Arthur Miller dropped his glass. The wine spilled across the expensive rug, a dark red stain that looked like blood. June stood in the shadows of the doorway. Her hands were shaking. She looked at Kalen. He was waiting for her. He wasn't asking. He was offering her a way out of the ruins of her life. She took a step forward into the light. The guests parted for her like she was a ghost. She walked until she was standing in front of him. You understand what this means? June whispered. She was close enough to smell the cold scent of winter on him. People will hate me. They will say I stole from my sister. Kalen reached out and took her hand. His skin was freezing, but his grip was solid. I don't care about their words, he said. I need a queen who knows how to fight. Do you want to stay here and watch this house burn? Or do you want to come with me and build something new? June looked at her father. He looked at her with pure rage. She looked at Rose, who was crying into her lace gloves. Then she looked at Kalen. For the first time in her life, someone had seen her. All right, she said, I will go. The carriage ride to Frost Estate was 40 minutes of silence. June sat on the velvet seat and watched the trees go by. Kalen sat across from her. He looked out the window at the dark hills. He didn't speak. He didn't try to hold her hand again. June felt the weight of what she had done. She had left her family. She had taken the only thing that could save them. But as the carriage climbed higher into the mountains, the air grew colder and fresher. The heat of Oakhaven felt like a bad dream. She looked at the man with the white hair. Who are you? She asked. Kalen turned his head. I am exactly what they say I am, he said. I am old, I am tired, and I am the king of a place that has forgotten how to be honest. He looked at her. But you are going to help me change that. Frost Estate was a massive house made of gray stone and dark wood. It sat on top of a hill like a sleeping giant. The windows were tall and narrow. When the carriage stopped, the air was crisp. June stepped out and felt the cold wind on her face. She liked it. It felt clean. A man met them at the door. He had gray hair and a sharp suit. This is Miles Vance, Kalen said. He runs my business affairs. Miles looked at June. He didn't look happy. He looked like he was calculating how much she would cost. Welcome to the High House, Mrs. Frost, Miles said. June corrected him. I am not Mrs. Frost yet, she said. I am just June. Miles raised an eyebrow. We will see, he murmured. He led them inside. The inside of the house was silent and grand. There were no flowers. There was no music. Everything was functional. June walked through the halls and felt the history of the place. It felt like a fortress. Kalen showed her to a room on the second floor. It was large and simple. There is an office down the hall, he said. It has the ledgers for the last 10 years. Miles will try to keep you out of them. Don't let him. June looked at him. Why are you giving me this? She asked. Most men want their wives to stay in the drawing room. Kalen leaned against the doorframe. I didn't marry you for your dancing, June. I married you because you saw the truth in a room full of lies. This estate is bleeding money. I need to know where it is going. June did not sleep that night. She went to the office. She found the books. They were huge, leather-bound volumes. She opened the first one and started to read. By 3 o'clock in the morning, she found the first mistake. By 5 o'clock, she found 10 more. Someone was stealing from the Frost estate. It wasn't a lot at once, but it was steady. It had been happening for 5 years. She heard a movement in the hall. She looked up and saw Thomas Frost standing in the doorway. He was Kaylin's father, though he looked only slightly older. He had the same white hair, but his eyes were like flint. "You are the girl from the Miller house," he said. June stood up. "I am June Miller," she said. Thomas walked into the room. "You should be in bed," he said. "This is men's work." June didn't flinch. She pointed to the page in front of her. "If this is men's work, then the men are doing a very poor job," she said. "You have lost $600 in the last month on transport fees that don't exist." Thomas stopped. He looked at the book, then he looked at June. He didn't look angry. He looked surprised. "My son said you were smart," he said. "I thought he was just being sentimental." June sat back down. "I don't think Kaylin is a sentimental man," she said. Thomas walked to the window. He looked out at the dark mountains. "He was a widower for 50 years, Thomas said. He stopped caring about anything but the walls of this house. Then he saw you. He thinks you can save us. Can you?" June looked at the numbers. "I can fix the books," she said. "But the rest is up to him." The next morning, June met Miles Vance in the dining room. He had a stack of papers. "We have a meeting with Richard Sterling today," Miles said. "He handles the trade contracts for the Northern Valley. He is a very important man." June took a sip of her coffee. It was strong and bitter. "I found a discrepancy in Mr. Sterling's last 3 invoices," she said. Miles went still. The room was very quiet. "I am sure it was just a clerical error," Miles said. His voice was tight. "It's a $600 error," June said. "That is a very large mistake." Kaylin walked into the room. He was wearing a gray coat. His white hair was brushed back. "What are we discussing?" he asked. "We are discussing Richard Sterling," June said. "I think he is stealing from you." Kaylin sat down at the head of the table. He looked at Miles. "Is this true?" Miles cleared his throat. "It is a matter of interpretation," he said. "Mr. Sterling has been a friend of this family for decades. He provides stability." June set her cup down. "Stability is not worth $600 a month," she said. Kaylin looked at her. His face was unreadable. "Sterling will be here at noon," he said. "You will be at the meeting, June." Miles started to protest. "She is not a member of the board," he said. "She is my wife," Kaylin said. His voice was like a hammer. "That is the only board that matters." Miles looked at June with pure hatred. He turned and left the room. June looked at Kaylin. "You are making enemies for me," she said. Kaylin looked at her. "You already had enemies, June. Now you just know their names." Richard Sterling arrived at noon. He was a big man with a red face and a loud laugh. He acted like he owned the house. He walked into the study and tried to slap Kaylin on the back. Kaylin stepped out of the way. Sterling laughed it off and looked at June. "And who is this lovely thing?" he asked. "Is this the little girl from Oakhaven?" "This is June, my wife," Kaylin said. Sterling grinned. "Well, Kaylin, you always did have a taste for the locals." He sat down and opened his bag. "Let's talk about the new contract. We need to increase the transport fee by 10%. The cost of labor is going up." June stepped forward. "The cost of labor in the valley has actually gone down by 5% this year," she said. Sterling stopped. He looked at her like she was a bug. "I beg your pardon," he said. June opened her notebook. "I checked the public records this morning," she said. "You are charging us for 3 wagons that were never used, and you have been double billing the insurance fees for 2 years. Sterling's face went from red to purple. "Now listen here," he said. "I don't know what kind of game you are playing." "It's not a game," June said. "It's accounting. You owe the Frost estate $4,000 in overpayments." Kaylin leaned back in his chair. He didn't say a word. He just watched. Sterling turned to Kaylin. "Are you going to let this girl talk to me like this?" he shouted. "I've been your partner for 20 years. Kaylin stood up. He was a head taller than Sterling. He moved close to the big man. His white hair seemed to shimmer with a cold light. "My wife is asking you a question, Richard," Kaylin said. His voice was low and terrifying. "I would suggest you answer it." Sterling looked at Kaylin's eyes. He saw something there that made him take a step back. He grabbed his bag. "This is an insult," he spat. "I will not be treated like a criminal." He turned and ran out of the room. June let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "He won't come back," she said. "No," Kaylin said, "he won't. But he will go to the other merchants. He will tell them we are difficult. He will try to starve us out." Kaylin looked at her. "Are you ready for a fight, June?" June picked up her pen. "I've been fighting since I was 16, she said. "I'm just getting started." The news of the fight with Richard Sterling spread through the valley in 2 days. People in Oakhaven talked about nothing else. They said June Miller had lost her mind. They said she was trying to act like a queen when she was just a girl who knew how to wash floors. Lydia Crane, the wealthiest woman in the county, decided to see for herself. She arrived at Frost Estate on a Thursday afternoon. She wore a hat with a long black feather. She sat in the drawing room and looked at June like she was a piece of cheap furniture. "It is very brave of you to challenge a man like Mr. Sterling," Lydia said. She smiled, but her eyes were cold. "Some might call it reckless." June sat across from her. "I call it necessary," she said. Lydia tilted her head. "People are saying you have changed things here," she said. "They say you are looking through all the old books. Is that true?" June nodded. "The estate was being mismanaged," she said. "I am just fixing the errors." Lydia laughed softly. "My dear, some errors are meant to stay hidden," she whispered. "The Frost family has a long history. They have many secrets. If you keep digging, you might find something you don't like." June looked at the white-haired woman. "Are you threatening me, Mrs. Crane?" Lydia stood up. "I am giving you advice," she said. "This is a quiet county. We like things to stay the same. If you try to change the way we do business, you will find yourself very lonely." Lydia walked out, her silk dress rustling like a snake in the grass. June went to find Kaylin. He was in the garden, looking at a dead rose bush. "Lydia Crane was just here," she said. "She told me to stop looking at the books." Kaylin didn't look up. "Lydia and Sterling are cousins," he said. "They have been controlling the trade in this valley for 50 years. They use my name to keep people in line, and they take a cut of the profits." June felt a cold realization hit her. "You knew?" she asked. Kaylin turned to face her. His skin looked like ice in the afternoon sun. "I suspected," he said, "but I didn't have the energy to prove it. I was tired of the world, June. I was waiting for someone to come along who cared enough to pull the curtain back. You did that. And now they are going to try to destroy you." June walked over to him. "Why don't you just stop them?" she asked. "You are the king. You have the power." Kaylin shook his head. "If I use my power to crush them, I am the monster they say I am," he said. "I want to win this with the truth. I want to show the people that we are better than the lies." He reached out and touched her cheek. His hand was cold but gentle. "I need you to be the voice, June. I will be the shadow that protects you, but you must lead the way." June felt a surge of strength. She had spent her life being the shadow. It was time to stand in the sun. "I will need the records from the last 20 years, she said. Caitlin smiled. It was a small, sharp smile. "I'll have Thomas bring them to your office." That night, June sat in the kitchen. She liked the kitchen at night. It reminded her of home, but without the heat and the debt. She was drinking tea when Miles Vance walked in. He looked tired. He sat down across from her. "You don't give up, do you?" he asked. June shook her head. "No," she said. "I don't." Miles looked at his hands. "I have worked for the Frost family for 20 years, he said. "I saw what happened after Kaylin's wife died. He just stopped living. He let Sterling and Lydia take over because he didn't care anymore." Miles looked at her. "I thought you were just another girl looking for a rich husband. I was wrong. I'm sorry." June was quiet for a moment. "Thank you, Miles," she said. Miles leaned forward. "Sterling is planning something," he whispered. "He is calling a meeting of the Trade Council in 2 weeks. He is going to try to prove that you are unfit to manage the estate. He is going to say that you have been manipulating Kaylin. He is even talking to your father." June felt a sharp pain in her chest. "My father?" she asked. Miles nodded. "Sterling promised to pay all of Arthur Miller's debts if he testifies against you. He wants your father to say that you were always unstable." June closed her eyes. She thought of her father's shifting eyes. She thought of Rose. "They are going to use my own family to break me," she said. Miles reached out and touched her arm. "Not if we beat them to it," he said. "We have 2 weeks." What June stood up. She felt a cold, clear fire in her heart. "I need to see the grain receipts from 1910, she said. "And I need to talk to my sister." Miles looked surprised. "Rose? She won't help you." June walked to the door. Rose isn't like my father, she said. She's just been waiting for someone to give her a reason to be brave. I'm going to give her that reason. June spent the next 3 days writing letters. She didn't write to the banks. She wrote to the farmers. She wrote to the women who ran the small shops in town. She told them the truth about the overcharges. She told them where their money had been going. She didn't ask for favors. She just gave them the facts. On the 4th day, a carriage arrived. It was Rose. She looked tired and she wasn't wearing her silk dress. She was wearing a simple cotton one. June met her at the door. Rose looked at the grand house. "It's beautiful here," she said, "but it's cold." June led her into the study. "Is Dad going to do it?" she asked. Rose sat down and looked at her feet. "Yes," she whispered. "Sterling came to the house every night. He gave Dad a bag of gold. Dad says it's the only way to save Oakhaven. He says you are being selfish." June felt a tear sting her eye, but she brushed it away. "And what do you think, Rose?" Rose looked up. Her eyes were red. "I think you were the only one who ever cared about us," she said. "I think we let you do all the work, and then we let you go." "I won't let him do this, June. I won't." Rose took a small piece of paper from her pocket. It was a list of names. "These are the men Sterling is paying to speak at the council," she said. "And this is the address of the warehouse where he is hiding the extra grain he stole from the Frosts. He's been selling it on the side for years." June took the paper. Her hands were shaking. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Rose stood up and hugged her sister. "Because I want to be like you, June," she said. "I'm tired of being the girl in the peach dress. I want to be the girl who knows the numbers." June held her sister tight. She realized she wasn't alone anymore. She had an army of 2, and that was enough to start a war. The night before the council meeting, the Frost estate was filled with a strange energy. June was in her office, surrounded by stacks of paper. She had mapped out every theft and every lie. She had the names of the farmers who had been cheated. She had the receipts from Sterling's secret warehouse. She was ready. Kalen walked in and leaned against the desk. He looked at the white hair falling over his forehead. "You haven't slept in 3 days," he said. June didn't look up. "I can sleep after tomorrow," she said. Kalen reached out and took the pen from her hand. "Look at me, June." She looked up. His eyes were dark and full of a strange heat. "You have done more for this family in a few months than I have done in a century," he said. June felt her heart race. "I just did what was right," she said. Kalen shook his head. "You did what was brave," he said. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. His lips were cold, but the gesture was the warmest thing she had ever felt. "No matter what happens tomorrow, you are the queen of this house. Not because of a crown or a title, but because you are the only person who refused to look away." He stood up. "Thomas is waiting. We are going to the city to meet the judges. We will see you at the courthouse at 10 o'clock. June watched him go. She felt a sense of peace. She had the truth. She had her sister, and she had the king. The courthouse in Oakhaven was packed the next morning. The air was thick with the smell of wet wool and nervous sweat. Richard Sterling sat at a long table with 2 lawyers. Lydia Crane sat in the front row, looking like she was at a play. Arthur Miller sat in the corner, his eyes fixed on the floor. He looked old and broken. June walked into the room with Miles Vance. She wore a simple black dress. She didn't look like a queen. She looked like a woman who was there to do a job. The head of the council, a man named Judge Harrison, hammered his gavel. "We are here to discuss the management of the Frost estate," he said. "Mr. Sterling, you have the floor." Sterling stood up. He looked confident. He spent 20 minutes talking about tradition. He talked about how the valley had always run on trust. He said that June Miller was a young girl who had been overwhelmed by the power of the Frost name. He said she was making false accusations because she didn't understand how business worked. Then he looked at Arthur Miller. "We have a witness," Sterling said. "Arthur, please tell the council about your daughter's history with the truth." Arthur Miller stood up slowly. He walked to the front of the room. He didn't look at June. "My daughter," he started. His voice was shaking. "My daughter has always been imaginative. She was always the one who wanted to control the money. She didn't understand her place." June felt a cold stone in her stomach. She watched her father lie. She watched him trade his daughter for a bag of gold. He told the council that June had stolen from their own family. He said she had a temper and that he was worried for Kalen's safety. The room was filled with gasps. Lydia Crane smiled. Sterling looked at June with a look of pure triumph. "Is that all, Mr. Miller?" Judge Harrison asked. Arthur nodded and sat down. He finally looked at June. He looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. June didn't look away. She stood up. "I would like to call a witness," she said. Her voice was clear and loud. It cut through the whispers like a knife. "I call Rose Miller to the stand," June said. The room went silent. Arthur Miller looked up, his face pale. Sterling shifted in his seat. Rose walked to the front. She looked beautiful, but there was a new strength in her eyes. "Rose, tell the council about the warehouse on Market Street," June said. Rose took a breath. She told them everything. She told them about Sterling's visits to their house. She told them about the gold he gave their father. She told them about the extra grain, and then she held up a ledger. "This is my father's book," she said. "It shows every payment Sterling made to him to keep June quiet." Arthur Miller put his head in his hands. Sterling jumped up. "This is a lie," he shouted. "She's just a girl." June walked to the front of the room. She laid a stack of papers on the judge's desk. "These are the receipts from the warehouse," she said. "They match the missing shipments from the Frost estate. And these are the affidavits from 10 different farmers who were charged double for their seed." She looked at the council. Mr. Sterling didn't think anyone was watching. He thought we were all too tired or too scared to check the numbers. But the numbers don't lie. They tell a story of 20 years of theft. She turned to Sterling. "You weren't protecting the valley, Richard. You were eating it." Judge Harrison looked at the papers. He looked at Sterling, who was now sweating through his shirt. He looked at Arthur Miller. The silence in the room was absolute. The judge leaned back. "This is very serious," he said. He looked at the other council members. They whispered for a moment. Then Harrison looked at June. "Mrs. Frost, you have provided more evidence in 10 minutes than we have seen in 10 years. We will need to investigate these records immediately. Until then, Mr. Sterling's trade license is suspended. And Arthur Miller," the judge looked at the old man, "you will return the money given to you by Mr. Sterling, or you will face charges of conspiracy." The room erupted. People were shouting. Sterling tried to push his way out the door, but 2 guards stopped him. Lydia Crane stood up and walked out without looking back. She knew when a game was lost. June stood at the front of the room. She felt the weight of the last few months lift off her shoulders. She looked at Rose, who was smiling through her tears. She looked at her father, who was being led away to sign the papers. Then she saw Kalen. He was standing at the back of the room. He wasn't a shadow anymore. He was standing in the full light of the morning sun. He walked through the crowd. People moved aside for him, but they weren't moving out of fear. They were moving out of respect. He walked up to June and took both of her hands. "You did it," he whispered. June looked at him. "We did it," she said. Kalen shook his head. "No, June, you led us out of the dark." He looked at the room. "This is your house now," he said. "And this is your valley." The weeks after the council meeting were a blur of activity. Sterling was gone, and many of the men who had worked with him were suddenly very eager to prove their honesty to June. She didn't make it easy for them. She set new rules for every contract. She made sure every farmer had a copy of their own receipts. She spent her days in the office and her evenings in the garden with Kalen. The Frost estate was changing. The gray stone didn't look so cold anymore. There were flowers in the windows. There was music in the halls. Rose had moved into a small house nearby and was learning how to manage the village school. The Miller family was broken, but for the first time, the pieces were in the right places. One evening, June was sitting at her desk when a letter arrived. It was from her father. He was living in a small cottage on the edge of Oakhaven. The letter was short. It didn't ask for money. It didn't ask for forgiveness. It just said that he had planted a garden. He said the roses were starting to bloom. June held the paper for a long time. She knew she might never go back to being the daughter he wanted, but she was the daughter he needed. She put the letter in her drawer. She would visit him soon, not to fix his life, but to see his roses. That was enough for now. Kalen walked into the room. He looked at the white hair on his shoulders. He looked like he was finally at peace. "Thomas wants us to come to the city for the winter," he said. "He wants to introduce you to the governors." June stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the valley. The sun was setting, turning the hills to gold. "I think I'd rather stay here," she said. "There is still a lot of work to do." Kalen walked up behind her and put his arms around her waist. His skin was still cold, but she didn't mind. She felt the strength of him. "Then we stay," he said. "Whatever you want, June. You are the one who makes the decisions now." June leaned back against him. She thought about the girl who had sat in the kitchen in Oakhaven, counting candles and worrying about wine bills. She felt like a different person, but she knew she was still the same. She was still the girl who saw the numbers. She was still the girl who wasn't afraid of the truth. But now, she was also the woman who had found a home in the heart of a king. She looked at the white-haired man in the reflection of the window. "We've done well, Kalen," she said. He kissed the side of her neck. "We've only just begun," he whispered. The stars started to come out over the mountains. The high house was warm and full of light. As the years went by, people forgot to call Kalen Frost the Vampire King. They just called him the Lord of the North. And they called June the Lady of the Books. They became a legend in the valley, not because of magic or mystery, but because of fairness. They built schools and clinics. They made sure the harvests were shared. They lived a long time, or so the stories said. Some people whispered that June never seemed to age, that her eyes stayed as sharp and bright as the day she stood in the courthouse. But the truth was simpler. She was happy, and happiness has a way of making time slow down. The final transition happened on a quiet spring morning 10 years after the council. June stood on the porch of the Frost estate and watched the sun rise. She thought about the path that had led her here. She thought about the heat of that first summer and the cold of the mountain winter. She realized that everything she had lost was just a trade for everything she had found. She wasn't the shadow anymore. She was the sun, and as long as she was there, the house would never fall. She turned and went inside, ready to start the day's work. There were always more numbers to check. There were always more truths to find. And she wouldn't have it any other way. I look back at the young woman I was, standing in that stifling kitchen in Oakhaven, and I barely recognize her. She was so afraid of the silence, so afraid that if she stopped moving, the world would crumble around her. She thought that her value was in her labor, in the way she could fix things that other people broke. She didn't realize that her true strength wasn't in her hands, but in her eyes. She was the only one willing to see the world as it actually was, even when it was ugly, even when it was falling apart. She spent so much time hiding in the shadows that she forgot she was the one holding the candle. It took a man from the dark to show her that light belongs in the center of the room. We spend our lives waiting for permission to be important. We wait for a father to notice us, or a sister to thank us, or a king to choose us. But the truth I have learned is that the choosing starts with yourself. You have to decide that your voice matters before anyone else will listen. You have to believe that the truth is worth the fight, even if you have to fight it alone. I am not a queen because of the man beside me, though I love him with every breath I have. I am a queen because I refuse to be a ghost. I stood my ground when the world told me to move. I kept the books when everyone else wanted to burn them. Now, when I walk through the halls of this house, I don't feel the weight of the past. I feel the solid foundation of the future. I see the people of this valley living without fear, and I know that I helped build that peace. It wasn't magic that saved us, it was honesty. It was the simple, difficult work of being real in a world that loves to pretend. I look at Kalen, and I see a man who was once a statue, brought back to life by the simple act of being seen. We are all just looking for someone who won't look away. And once you find that, once you are truly seen, you never have to be invisible again. The house is standing. The harvest is in. And for the first time in my life, I am exactly where I belong.